Okay, I wanted to discuss some really important things, and has to do with getting a perspective on door knocking. Obviously, it's going to take more than one video to be able to discuss the things that are really important, but I want to just kind of go over the main important things that I feel are necessary. You know, door knocking is, as much as it is physical, it's probably more so mental. There's a lot of battling that you do. Do you skip houses? Do you go for the ones that only look good? Um, are you knocking at a certain price point? There's a lot of things that go into it even before you go out there. So I want to kind of go into the four things that I do. Before I go out to door knock, I make sure that I print a page of comps. These comps are going back a full year, 365 days, sometimes even further if I have to, just so I can get a kind of an idea of what's going on in the neighborhood. Once I have that down, and if the other thing that I think is huge is plan out where you're going to go and plan a system. Put a date on every street that you need to knock. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming and a little confusing. It's hot, you get tired. There's a lot of excuses that want to go through your mind, to be honest with you, with some of that stuff. But here's what I've learned is when you have a system of sort of a like a day pinpointed for that street, and you know that you're going to get behind schedule if you do not knock that street that day, it will help you get motivated and to go out and knock that street. But not only do that, but to actually continue to knock on that street. You know, sometimes I think you'll get overwhelmed, you'll get hot, all the excuses start setting in. You're not getting anybody at the right time. You're not talking to as many people as you want, or nobody's wanting to sell. No one knows anybody selling, and it can be a little discouraging. I think what we have to remember is the success is in the system that we create. So if we create a system and the consistency of hitting those dates that we set in our calendar to go knock a street, first of all, you need to move swiftly through a neighborhood. You don't want to have, you don't want to be door knocking for like a whole month in four streets in a neighborhood. People are going to get weird about that. They're going to be like, "Hey, who's this person?" Just so you know, there's Facebook groups created. I know in my neighborhood for weirdos. You know, like for moms that are looking for weirdos that are parking, cruising down the street because you know they want to keep their neighborhood safe. You don't want to become that person that everybody wants to avoid, and you don't certainly want to give those kind of people that are really just negative, that are going to say bad things about you just because you're going door to door, the opportunity to have a whole month to kind of create some sort of pushback group on you, where nobody wants to answer when you ring their doorbell. So you want to move swiftly through the neighborhood. You want to have a date of when to obviously knock homes and get them done. And partially some of that motivation comes from you wanting to get a listing. How hungry are you? I did another video on you know, how to create hunger and motivation when you have complacency in your life and or in your business or in whatever part of your business. It may not be in every part of your business, but it might be in specific parts. And what we don't want to have happen is no consistency. And door knocking, just like any other lead source or gathering, lead generation that you do, needs to be consistent. And when you are consistent, you know that it's a numbers game, and eventually you're going to run into the right person. You cannot have, well, you can, but you shouldn't have to have the wrong conversation when you have the right person. If the right person's standing right in front of you, and you have the right script, and you've rehearsed it, and you know that they don't practice on a regular basis, but you do, who should be winning? Who should have the advantage in that conversation? It should be you. And if, just like anything else, if you had a listing lead that came from the internet, you want to be prepared with internet scripts. People who come in from the internet usually don't give all their information. If they do, they are they're either really open or they're really disguising themselves, and it takes a ton of just effort to get to the bottom of the lead to see if they're really going to become a prospect and a true seller or buyer for you. When you door knock, the truth is you're really trying to get listings. Most people that have door knocked, in fact, I can only think of, the only time I've had a buyer come from door knocking is because they sold their house. A few of them are rentals, and you can find those people. Some of them will refer you. I've noticed that a lot of people will refer people. The problem with referring people is they usually don't give out their numbers. So you have to do a lot of follow-up and things like that. But then the conversation at the door to win them over and to have you trust them to give you their friend's number or email is huge. And you need to be prepared for that. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time going out there. So there's a lot of mental battling that goes on, not just when you're out physically door knocking, but before it even begins. You have to be prepared. You can't just go randomly up to the door and do it. The other thing is, I have this door knocking notebook right here, okay? And in this notebook, I have every house that I door knock, I have a note for that house. I just make a quick note after every one of them. Let me see if I can show you. There's bad lighting, I guess, but there's notes on that page for every house. You cannot prejudge a house because even if it's a terrible house, it's a listing, right? I mean, if you're the one that gets to have the commission, then I'd say that's a pretty good day, right? So just count your blessings for what you get. It's a numbers game. Somebody's going to need to sell. You need to have the right conversation with the right person at the right time. Now, speaking of time, when do you go out? I have found, after some trial and error, that many people really just don't want to talk to you on weekends, nor do they want to talk to you on a Saturday morning. I used to think Saturday morning, that's when everybody's home. No, like a lot of them, especially if they have kids, they're going to soccer practice. They're going places. I have had terrible success on Saturdays and Sundays. And I used to go, and then I said, okay, well, I'm going to go Saturday, Sunday nights on the weekends because everyone should be home. Well, guess what they're doing? They're hosting people. They're having a cookout. They do not want to be disturbed. So then I got smart and I started thinking, okay, when would they be home before all that kind of stuff gets started? And the conclusion is that at 4 p.m., 4:30 p.m., when everybody starts going home, Monday is the best day and trash day. But any afternoon is really good, except for Wednesdays because a lot of people go to church. So if you can hit people at that time, they're coming home. The first thing that people do when they come home is what? Every day. They go to their mailbox. They go. So what does that mean? Well, you're standing out on the curb, walking around, and if somebody's going to come out, they're coming out to get their mail. And what's the point of being out there? You want a conversation about real estate. You shouldn't care what it looks like. You want a conversation, so make it happen. As awkward as it is, you want to just get done with the awkward moment and see and get down to the bottom line. Are you or anyone you know thinking of selling this year? If not, when would you make a move? And I'm telling you that will open up just so many opportunities. If not, okay, great, you're not moving. Well, who do you know that is moving? It doesn't necessarily have to be in your neighborhood. Maybe it's at work or church. Maybe if you go to school somewhere, in college, all kinds of things. People know people that are moving. And if we don't ask, well, that's, you're losing an opportunity right there. So there's a lot more perspective that goes into it, but here's the big thing. If you are to take away one or two nuggets from this talk today, number one is you need to find the seller. You should be hungry for finding the seller. You are on a scavenger hunt to find out who is the person you should be talking to. Every single house should have a note on it because if they're not home, just because they weren't home doesn't mean you're done with the street. That means you need to figure it out. So one of the things that you need to do is write notes. And if they're not home, guess what? You're going to go back out there and finish the street. Have a good day.